Discover the incredible unexpected connection. A lonely CEO dad finds hope in one last coffee. Ethan Reynolds stood in his corner office. The glittering expanse of Chicago sprawled beneath him. The morning sun sliced through his floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating the sleek design surrounding him but failing to pierce the fog of isolation that engulfed his heart. He was a titan in the tech world, yet the glow of success felt cold against the solitude that shadowed his everyday life. His children, now teenagers, had grown accustomed to the lavish gifts he offered. Instead of his presence, a new car replaced the father they barely knew. The worrying thought nagged at him. Was their relationship already irreparable? As he planned his day, his mind raced. An impending merger loomed large, a vital stepping stone to his greater ambitions. But underneath that layer of urgency came a heavier weight, the gnawing awareness that despite possessing everything, he had built an empire on an emotional chasm. Stepping out of the office, he realized he was late for his meeting. But today felt different. A strange urge propelled him away from his usual path. Ethan veered into a quaint coffee shop tucked between looming skyscrapers. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee wrapped around him, a stark contrast to the sterile atmosphere of his corporate fortress. It felt like stepping into a different world, one where human connections simmered beneath the surface. He ordered a dark roast, barely noticing the barista's friendly smile. His thoughts were interrupted by laughter, warm and inviting, tinged with notes of resilience. In the corner, he spotted her. A single mother, Maddie, sketching furiously in a battered notebook. Intrigued, he couldn't help but approach. Their initial conversation unfolded effortlessly, revealing common threads of struggle stitching their lives together. She was brave, confronting the harsh realities of her world with a painter's heart, while he magnified his isolation through relentless corporate climbing. Before we continue, he paused, feeling a jitter of vulnerability. I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Her smile faded momentarily, allowing him to glimpse a fleeting shadow of doubt so familiar to him. As they spoke, he felt a stirring that had long been dormant, awakening buried dreams and forgotten laughter. But just as connection bloomed, a jarring reality crashed through his reverie. An urgent email buzzed on his phone, alerting him of a betrayal at work. One of his trusted executives was colluding with competitors, undercutting his deal. Panic surged, the conflict bubbling within him. Should he fight to defend his empire or follow this and seek warmth in Maddie's trust? Something that felt tantalizingly close yet infinitely far away. Ethan's mind raced, spiraling into uncertainty. The impending chaos at his company and the raw authenticity in Maddie's presence painted a stark portrait of the choices ahead. He stood at a precipice, torn between the cold edge of corporate retaliation that echoed his worst fears of inadequacy and the promise of connection that broke through his loneliness. The walls of the coffee shop seemed to close in, the comforting ambience morphing into a battleground of emotions. Uncertainty swirled around him as sunlight streamed inside, illuminating the path of unpredictability ahead. How could he reconcile his ambitions with the need for genuine bonds that left him exposed and vulnerable? He took a deep breath, the weight of his dilemma pressing down like a leaden cloak. Every moment extended, and he sensed that whatever choice he made, not just for his company, but for his life, would redefine his legacy. The air thickened with unspoken risks as he prepared for the next move, knowing that the answers were as elusive as the steady flow of coffee. The crisis gnawed at Ethan as he stood in the coffee shop, staring blankly at his phone. The messages from his office flooded his mind, drowning out the laughter and warmth surrounding him. He had to act, but a flicker of doubt ignited within him, questioning the very foundation of his decisions. For so long, he had equated success with hard-nosed tactics, the relentless drive of a CEO. Yet here, stripped of his corporate armor, he found an unexpected ally in Maddie. What if she could offer him a glimpse into a different life, one where compassion and trust were central to success? As he weighed the options, his thoughts ricocheted between the urgent calls for action from his company and the quiet, compelling strength radiating from Maddie's sketches. Each stroke of her pencil spoke of truth and vulnerability, qualities he had buried beneath layers of ambition. Ethan? Her voice cut through his spiraling thoughts. He looked up to find her watching him, eyes filled with curiosity and understanding. Everything okay? It was such a simple question, yet it felt monumental. In a world of boardroom bravado, he was used to masking his emotions. But the warmth in her gaze invited a genuine response. Was it possible to open up to someone he barely knew? The thought both terrified and exhilarated him. Not really, he finally admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. I just found out someone close to me has betrayed my trust. I feel lost. Maddie's expression softened as she leaned closer, free of judgment. Trust is precious, she replied, her voice steady. It's hard to navigate betrayal, especially when you've built your world around it. But maybe this gives you the chance to reassess what truly matters. The insight struck him hard, an echo of his own internal struggle. He realized he could approach this crisis not just as a leader, but as a father and a human being yearning for connection. Perhaps this was the moment to stop the cycle of isolation he had perpetuated. But could he risk delaying his corporate priorities for something so intangible? With each passing second, Ethan felt a pull toward a different path, one that might lead to healing with his children as well. He thought back to their moments together, the hurried dinners, the missed game days. How had he allowed ambition to overshadow the most important relationships in his life? His phone buzzed again, breaking the thread of his contemplations. Desperation bubbled inside him, the insistence that decisions must be guided by urgency and profit. Yet, sitting with Maddie, he began to wonder if a better choice lay before him: confront the betrayal or explore the potential of deeper relationships. It was a stark amplification of the dilemmas he faced daily: compassion versus capital, connection versus career. Just then, he noticed Maddie had returned to her drawing, immersed in her world. There was a sense of ease about her that he longed to capture. What are you sketching? He asked, curiosity piqued. A view of something new, she replied, beaming. Sometimes you have to see from a different perspective to find inspiration. The words hung in the air, resonating with his current state of mind. He realized that maybe, just maybe, this was the moment he needed to shift his focus from corporate conquest to personal growth. As he absorbed her message, a reckless determination surged within him. He wouldn't let fear dictate his next moves. Infused with a new conviction, Ethan turned towards Maddie. Can I share something with you? The answer was evident in her welcoming smile, igniting a spark of hope in him. Whatever he chose next, it was sure to intertwine his ambitions with the deeper, authentic relationships he craved. The conversation felt like a turning point, one step closer to his true self. Yet, as the shadows of corporate betrayal loomed larger, Ethan sensed that the next decision could shatter the fragile rebirth he was experiencing. Just promise me one thing, he murmured, a hint of urgency threading his tone. If I do this, will you help me navigate the unknown? Maddie nodded, slowly, her eyes unwavering. Only if you promise to be truthful with yourself as you explore what lies ahead. Uncertainty crackled in the air as Ethan contemplated the implications. The moment was ripe for transformation, yet fated choices awaited. Would he dare to intertwine his world of hard-nosed business with the vulnerability of honesty and connection? As they shared a tentative smile, the immense weight of change loomed over them, setting the stage for his ultimate decision. The coffee shop's comforting warmth became a crucible for growth, and with every heartbeat, the fear of embracing his true self bubbled insistently to the surface. Little did he know that the betrayal was merely the first domino, leading to a reckoning that would redefine every aspect of his life. The time had come to face the consequences of his choices, and as the first rays of real transformation broke through, he felt the stirrings of something far greater than mere business success. Ethan stared into the depths of his coffee cup, wrestling with an internal tempest. Maddie's words lingered like a haunting melody, a reminder that shifting his perspective was the key to unlocking a more meaningful life. Yet, could he truly blend the world of cutthroat competition with the gentle art of human connection? The warmth of the coffee shop felt foreign, almost suffocating against the chill of his corporate obligations. Just beyond the expansive glass window, the bustling city carried on, oblivious to the storm churning within him. Each vibration of his phone jarred him back to reality, an incessant reminder of the responsibilities he had left untended. But this moment, right here with Maddie, beckoned him toward a path not yet traveled. "Have you ever had to choose between what's easy and what's right?" he asked, his voice trembling with vulnerability. He could hardly recognize himself in that question. Maddie tilted her head, genuinely considering his query. "Every single day," she responded. "It's like deciding whether to take a shortcut or to embrace the winding road that might show you something you never expected." Her words were laced with an understanding that felt profound yet comforting. A veil of uncertainty flickered in her gaze, reflecting the inherent risks in her own artistic journey. This was the essence of connections he had long ignored, the willingness to confront fear and admit doubts rather than gloss over them. A knot tightened in his stomach. The corporate environment was a place where feelings had no currency. But here, in this intimate exchange, vulnerability felt strangely empowering. "Maddie, I've spent so long focused on profits and achievements, and I feel it's cost me more than I realize time with my kids, personal connections. I don't want it to be too late." As the words tumbled out, he recognized that he wasn't just articulating regret. He was declaring war on the habitual isolation that had become his life. A flicker of conviction ignited within him. Could he pivot and forge a path that embraced both responsibility and connection, melding the CEO and the father into one cohesive identity? Maddie's eyes sparkled with a mix of encouragement and warmth. Life is a series of intersections. It's normal to feel lost, but it's how you navigate those turns that define you. Ethan felt invigorated by her steadfastness. Could he unleash the unyielding CEO while cultivating the nurturing father? He envisioned the threads of his role as a leader slipping free from the constricting formality, unfurling into something more accessible, more human. What if I reached out to someone I've been distancing myself from? A step that might shatter the barriers I've built? The notion felt exhilarating, and he could sense the weight of his past choices clinging to him, yet it also felt like an opening. "Then do it," Maddie urged, her conviction fierce. "But start on your own terms. One small step. You have to believe that you're worth the effort. Trust in your choices." His heart raced at the thought, the twin forces of anxiety and excitement battling within him. He reached for his phone, hesitating over the contact that held the potential to alter his trajectory. The names danced before him like specters of past decisions drenched in tension and regret. But was it the past that defined him? Or was it the courage to step away from it? This very phone had been his lifeline to power, but had also served as a barrier to connection. Taking a deep breath, he watched as Maddie picked up her sketchbook again, absorbed in creative zeal. Inspiration surged within him, fueled by the realization that genuine success was not a solo act. It was about weaving together fragments of life, experience, trust, and vulnerability. "Okay," he finally murmured, resolution firming like iron in his veins. One leap into the unknown might lead him closer to the family he had neglected, the trust that had been broken, and the rekindled bond he desperately needed. As he typed out the message, a rush of adrenaline filled the void where fear had long resided. He could feel the thrill of possibility coursing through him as he hit send. His heart pounded a cacophony of hope and dread. Would he even get a response? Would this act edge him closer to the healing he sought? While the future felt precarious, it was a pivotal choice, one that promised a reckoning of sorts. "What did you just do?" Maddie asked, her eyes alive with curiosity. "I reached out. And now, it's in their hands," he replied, his own voice barely registering over the cacophony of realization. Yet, as he looked past Maddie and gazed at the world outside, a new tension settled in. The impending reply could either affirm his emerging courage or plunge him into uncertainty. And amid it all, the question remained, could he reconcile the identities within himself? With anticipation swirling inside, Ethan realized he was teetering on the precipice of something transformative. Would he embrace the tumultuous journey ahead? Or would the shadows of his past drag him back into the dark confines he fought so hard to escape? Ethan sat in the coffee shop, the ambient noise fading as he tuned into the chaotic soundtrack playing in his head. Each traffic horn, every chatter, blended into a relentless reminder of his indecision. Maddie's presence grounded him, but her curious gaze pushed him towards self-discovery rather than retreating into his previous habits. Moments after he hit send on his message, the rush of exhilaration quickly morphed into anxiety. It was as if he had stripped himself bare in front of the entire world, and now he had to confront the potential fallout. He fought against the impulse to check his phone. His mind raced with scenarios, each more daunting than the last. His vulnerability brought back vivid memories of missed dinners, family gatherings overshadowed by work commitments, and the frigid silence that followed strained conversations. He had become an architect of isolation in the guise of ambition. "What are you thinking?" Maddie's voice pierced through his reverie, pulling him back to the tender reality surrounding him. Ethan stared at his hands, both instruments of diligence and a barrier to tenderness. "I wonder if they'll even care to respond. Maybe it was foolish to think I could just step back into their lives after all this time." "Foolish? Or courageous?" she countered, her tone steady yet nurturing. "It's your willingness to confront your past that will be judged, not the fictional responses you've imagined." Her words resonated with him, and he realized how easily he had woven despair into possibilities. With every flick of anxiety that lurked within him, there was a corresponding thread of hope, each one begging to be pulled. Unraveling his present self into something richer, he shifted in his seat and leaned closer to Maddie, whose steady presence evoked a warmth he hadn't expected to find in such a tangled moment. "What if facing them only exacerbates the situation? What if I have changed too much for them to accept me?" "Change can be intimidating," she said slowly, weighing her words with care. "But it's also the bridge between who you were and who you need to be. You can either allow it to separate you or let it connect you in unexpected ways. Maybe it's not about them accepting you, but about you accepting yourself." The clarity punctuated the fog that clouded his thoughts. He had seen change as disruptive, something to control and avoid. But what if embracing it could reveal a path back to the bonds he had severed? The reluctance to admit his flaws had only cultivated a barren garden, devoid of the fruits that a flourishing relationship could yield. "What if I told them how much I've missed them, that my priorities are shifting?" The words felt foreign and daunting, but their resonance hinted at a more profound truth buried beneath his exterior. A flicker of hope ignited inside him. "Yes, it's about reconnecting, not just giving them your updated resume." Maddie smiled warmly. "You're more than your job title, Ethan. Dive deeper. Communicate the you behind the mask you've worn for so long." As he pondered her insight, he felt an urgency building within him. He needed momentum. He could no longer hover on the edge of connection. He had to dive in headfirst. Resolute, he pulled out his phone and opened the messaging app again. "Can you help me draft another message?" he asked, emboldened by the knowledge that his emotional truth was no longer a liability, but an asset. "Just speak from the heart," she suggested, her encouragement wrapping around him like a warm embrace. "Let them see the man who stumbles yet yearns for more. Share your fears as well. It's integral to the wisdom you have gained." Taking a deep, steadying breath, Ethan began to type, crafting a message that was authentic, one that reflected not just his regrets but his newfound resolve. He shared stories, acknowledged missteps, but wove in heartfelt apologies, hopes for the future, and an earnest desire to reconnect. After hitting send, the static buzz of uncertainty danced around him again. He sat back, allowing air to briefly halt in his lungs, drenched in anticipation. Had he gone far enough to rekindle the love he had let fester? Maddie's voice again gripped his attention. "What's next for you if they respond positively?" The question struck him like a bolt of lightning, surging through the uncertainty once more. What would he do then? Would he reintroduce himself? Was he prepared to step beyond the professional facade he had upheld for so long? And at that moment, He began to realize he had to not only wait for a response, but prepare himself for a future where he was unguarded, where both CEO and father could coexist harmoniously. The tangled identities within him beckoned for integration as the world outside faded under the strength of possibility. Ethan wondered, would he rise to meet the challenge, or would he cower away from the chance to redefine himself amid the chaos of familial ties? Ethan sat in the small coffee shop, the familiar smell of roasted beans mingling with the sharp scent of anticipation. The message sent, the trembling uncertainty in his chest shifted into something else, an electric current, begging to be dealt with decisively. Waiting for a reply felt like standing on the edge of a precipice, and he couldn't afford to let fear paralyze him. No turning back now, he murmured under his breath, rising from the table. Maddie smiled encouragingly, but he could sense her retreating presence, leaving him alone to confront the ghostly expectations haunting him. Outside, he inhaled deeply, the crisp air filling his lungs, grounding him. It was time to outline the plan of who he wanted to be, not just in their eyes, but in his own. He needed to reclaim the parts of himself he had buried beneath layers of ambition. The thought of reconnecting with his family crept forward like a wolf on the prowl. Would they welcome him with open arms, or would waves of resentment crash upon his shores? He pictured them, laughing over dinner while he was absent, his only contribution being a half-hearted text of apology. What did he have to offer now? Could he bridge the gaps his isolation had created? Ethan wandered into the park nearby, surrounded by families engaged in cheerful chaos, reminding him of what he had forfeited. As he strolled along the path, fragments of joy mingled with his guilt. There was a certain brilliance in their radiance, effortlessly showcasing the warmth of connection he desperately missed. Each family unit was a living example of what he had neglected: intimacy and honesty in relationships. He paused under a massive oak tree, observing the sun filtering through the leaves. The glimmering light lit up the ground around him, an intriguing reflection of clarity he needed. It occurred to him that connection was not simply a matter of re-entering their lives. It demanded his full presence, equal commitment, and consistent effort. Okay, he whispered softly. This is a transformation worth pursuing. He envisioned pathways branching ahead, conversations filled with laughter, shared meals, and vulnerable admissions of faults. He had to show up not as a polished CEO, but as Ethan, the father, the son, the man willing to confront his own shortcomings. Returning home, he grabbed a notebook, reveling in the tangible tool that would help organize his thoughts. How many years had he abandoned the simple act of writing? The pages began to fill up with promises. Ideas for family activities, unresolved conversations, small gestures he could implement to show he lived for more than just business deals. The intimacy of written words painted pictures of potential futures, a tangible roadmap back to love as he penned down plans. With a coffee still warm beside him, something unexpected struck him. What if I made a video? He thought, the idea crystallizing with vivid excitement. In a world saturated by polished images, authenticity could be refreshing. Perhaps sharing his journey through a personalized video would bridge the initial hesitation, opening the door for hesitant hearts to welcome him back. With renewed purpose, Ethan seized his phone and turned on the camera. He took a deep breath, each word catalogued in his mind, a nervous anticipation. This is it, he muttered under his breath as he pressed record. How do I start? He thought, suddenly blanking. Just as his next line began to assemble, a message buzzed on his device, momentarily sidetracking his concentration. It was a reply. Plain text but with potent implications. His restlessness exploded, a mixture of dread and exhilaration. With uncertainty burning in his chest, Ethan hesitated. Would he dare to move forward, unguarded once again? The moment had arrived, challenging him to confront his deepest fears. Would he risk everything in this pivotal moment, or would he allow self-doubt to thwart his efforts? Ethan's fingers hovered over the screen, the reply glowing ominously. He took a moment to steady himself, allowing the world around him to fade as he grappled with the swirling cocktail of emotions brewing within him. The moment felt vast, like the expanse of the park surrounding him. Would this reply be an overture or an eviction notice from his own family? His thumb quivered as he opened the message, bracing for the flood of judgment or, perhaps, an unexpected olive branch. What could possibly hold the power to alter the course of his self-imposed exile? The text was simple, a few words that stirred a tempest within him. "We miss you. When can we talk?" Relief washed over him, but it was steeped in uncertainty. They missed him? It was a phrase he had longed to hear yet had simultaneously dreaded. He imagined the conversations that could unfold from those words, the pain, the excuses, the long-held grievances. Could he rise to meet this challenge, or would his failures smother him even before he began to respond? He glanced around at the park, a living tableau of familial resilience. Each laugh echoed the warmth he craved, while simultaneously amplifying the loneliness that gnawed at him. They were there, and he was here, the chasm still yawning wide between his desire for connection and the fear of disappointment. Did he even deserve to reclaim this part of his life? He lowered his gaze to the ground beneath the oak tree, its roots visible, pushing through the earth in determined defiance. Would he emerge with the same determination? He realized he was asking the wrong questions. He could no longer ask whether he deserved love, but instead whether he was willing to work for it, to earn it back. The thought spread a sense of choreographed clarity through his gorgeously complicated soul. With newfound resolve, Ethan turned to his notebook. He scribbled down thoughts feverishly, bulleted reminders of what he wanted to convey. Acknowledge the distance. Share the struggles. Invite them to understand who I am today. He felt invigorated, pulling the threads of his narrative together, stitching in vulnerability and authenticity. But the video he had planned began to morph. Instead of a polished production, it would be an honest account of his journey, a confession, a promise to try. He couldn't hide behind a facade any longer. It was time to strip down the layers of the CEO persona that had become both a shield and a cage. Ethan's voice quaked as he pressed record again. "This is real. This is me." The words flowed more freely now, raw and unscripted, illuminating the layers of struggle and the hope entwined within them. He poured his heart out, recounting times of neglect, the weight of isolation, revealing his yearning for connection. Each sentiment chipped away at the wall he had built, leaving only the beginnings of connection. He stopped for a moment, taking a deep breath. Who was he now? The version before the camera felt more authentic, liberated from the relentless expectation of perfection. But what would his family think? Would they embrace this revelation, or would they recoil in disbelief? Determined to not halt the momentum, he hit send. This newfound video a bridge toward a horizon unexplored. Hours later, the pool of uncertainty swirled in his gut as he awaited their response. What had he just done? He had unleashed his vulnerability, inviting them into a shared space fraught with his tortured past and hopes for the future. As he stared at his phone, anticipation crackling in the air, another message flooded in, altering his heartbeat. The time had come to face the consequences. Ethan clenched his fists. This was only the beginning. The future loomed magnificent and frightening, demanding every bit of strength he could muster to confront what lay ahead. Would they respond with empathy or shock? The very foundation of his journey rested on their reply. Ethan remained motionless, his phone pressing into his palm like a weighty promise or a solemn threat. In that loaded moment, he felt the gravity of his decision settle in. The video was more than a simple outreach. It was a plea disguised as raw honesty, a call to his family and ultimately to himself. He could no longer drift through life, tethered to past mistakes. No, he was stepping into the spotlight of his own narrative. The rhythmic thrum of the park pulsed around him, the laughter of children flitting through the air like ghosts of what he had lost. In that instant, he realized his purpose wasn't just about reconciling with his family but was also about rediscovering who he was. The son, the brother, the human beneath the CEO facade. He had to confront the parts of his identity that felt like haunting shadows. What would it take to break through the emotional barricade? Ethan rose, striding with renewed purpose toward the park's cafe, a small establishment shrouded by oak trees. Coffee was more than just a beverage. It was a fabric woven into every family gathering he'd missed. He would demonstrate that, like the cafe's comforting aroma, He could offer warmth and familiarity once more as he entered. The rich scent enveloped him. He could hear the barista's cheerful banter with customers. Each transaction another reminder of interactions he had long avoided. A surge of determination coursed through him, informing every calculated decision that followed. He had been a master strategist, navigating high-stakes business deals. Now he would employ the same acumen to reclaim his emotional fortitude. Choosing a secluded corner, he ordered a black coffee. As he waited, he reflected on the sequence of events leading him here. He had lived too long without conversation, without connection. What awaited him now was the opportunity to turn vulnerability into strength. A paradox he was just beginning to unravel. When his drink was ready, he settled into the chair, cradling the warm cup in both hands. How would he cultivate that same kinship with his family that he witnessed among strangers? His fingers absent-mindedly traced the rim of the cup, producing a contemplation at the forefront of his mind. Real relationships thrived on honest exchanges, not rehearsed lines or corporate jargon. Suddenly, his phone buzzed with a new message, this time from his sister. Ignoring the rush of anxiety that spiked in his chest, he opened it gradually. "Can we meet? We need to talk." Ethan's heart raced, indecision flooding him. The moment had arrived, the crossroads of his family and past self converging. He pictured the words he had shared in the video, the burdens he yearned to shed. Would he be brave enough to bare his soul again, this time in person? There was an old comfort in familiarity battling against the pangs of dread. Would he emerge empowered, or would the past pull him under yet again? His next action rested on the cusp of something both thrilling and terrifying. He unlocked his phone, fingers trembling as they hovered over the reply. Was he ready to face them with all that he had released in his video, or would he retreat into the shadows, leaving the door ajar for doubt to creep back in? In the paradox of wanting and fearing connection, he realized something important. It always came down to choice. Would he choose to stay, to confront the consequences of his past, and transform this moment into a foundation for his future? Ethan pressed send on a tentative affirmation to meet. The coffee was merely a prelude. It was time to dive into the depths of the unknown, where real confrontations awaited. As he sat, breathing in the rich aroma, the stakes escalated around him. Soon he would either reconcile with his family or learn anew just how far he was willing to stretch himself in pursuit of healing. Little did he know, another challenge loomed ahead, one that would redefine everything he thought he understood about family. Would it be enough to prepare him for the ultimate confrontation lying in wait? Ethan felt the warm cup slip from his grasp, the coffee spilling like a torrent over the table as the message from his sister continued to echo in his mind. His heart pounded against his ribcage, the chaotic chatter of the cafe fading into a dull roar. He had expected a whirlwind of emotions when finally reaching out to his family, but the whirlwind now felt like a storm. As the barista rushed to clean up, Ethan remained anchored in his seat, lost in thought. What would this conversation reveal? What branches of the years past would he have to navigate? The decision to meet had been a small act, just pressing send. Yet it felt monumental. Each passing moment bore witness to his growing determination, the admission that his family still mattered. With that realization came an unsettling awareness of the stakes involved. Would they see the change he envisioned in himself? Behind the polished exterior of a successful CEO, there lingered a man fraught with guilt and longing, desperate to reclaim lost intimacy. What if this meeting thrust open old wounds instead of fostering healing? The potential for both reconciliation and devastation clung in the air around him. Ethan's thoughts shifted, grounding him. He would prepare, not just for their questioning but for the introspection required of him. He remembered his father's stern yet kind demeanor, his mother's warmth wrapped in a sense of duty, and his sister's fierce loyalty peppered with indignation. Each represented a chapter of his life he hadn't navigated in years, and here he was, unwillingly preparing for a pivotal meeting as if it were a business negotiation, with a newfound purpose igniting inside him. Ethan realized he couldn't approach this as a mere exchange of words or apologies. This was the opportunity to reshape their connection. What if he could bring to the table an openness that shattered the constraints of expectation? The vulnerability he practiced during his video could be transformed into raw, unfiltered honesty in person. Deciding to structure his thoughts into a narrative rather than a checklist, he began to map out the moments he would share. He jotted down the key points on a napkin, hoping to illustrate how he had grown without alienating their shared history. Each line reminded him of lessons learned in the harshest ways, as they battled the questions and fears he had shielded himself from for so long. Looking around the cafe filled with laughter and chatter, Ethan found himself yearning for genuine connection, something more than superficial exchanges that characterized his professional life. He envisioned sharing not just words but stories, experiences that could bridge the chasm he had unwittingly widened. As the barista returned to refill his cup, Ethan forced a smile and thanked him. Instead of a wave of anxiety, he felt a spark of determination in facing the conversation ahead. His sister's message had been a beckoning to reconnect, a chance to escape the isolation he had inadvertently cloaked himself in. He understood now that the act of reaching out wasn't merely for reconciliation. It was an affirmation of his commitment to growth. Whatever happened in that meeting, he would carry the lesson forward. That healing starts with honest connection, and there is profound strength in vulnerability. Ethan stood, the resolve within him settling like warm embers ready to ignite. As he walked out of the cafe, his phone buzzed again. It was a message from his sister, and the words struck him like a thunderbolt. "I'm already here. Are you coming?" The finality of her statement clawed at his insides, the urgency propelling him forward. Would he capture this fleeting moment of bravery and finally meet his past head-on? Or would he allow it to slip away and fade back into obscurity? Ethan stepped into the brisk air, each breath a reminder that he was leaving the comfortable chaos of the cafe behind, plunging into the unknown. The streets, drenched in afternoon light, felt like a vivid contrast to the weight he carried. As he walked, a mixture of anticipation and dread coursed through him. He had abandoned the ease of corporate meetings, where conversations were neatly contained within agendas, for the messy realm of familial relationships where emotions lurked like shadows. His mind raced. What if he faltered? What if he allowed the fear of vulnerability to crush the fragile hope he had nurtured in the last few days? The coffee had spilled, but perhaps it was a metaphor for the emotional mess he was about to confront. He caught sight of a nearby park, where children played with a glee that felt foreign yet enticing. There it was again, the longing for connection, for a shared smile unburdened by years of distance. As he approached the cafe where his sister awaited, he mentally rehearsed the stories he had written on that napkin. He would share his struggles, the moments of isolation that had once felt insurmountable. Yet, even as he planned, an instinctual doubt crept in. He would need to be prepared for their rejection as much as for their acceptance. What if they were not ready to see him as he wanted to be seen? Neglecting the scuff of his shoes against the pavement, he let his eyes wander, scanning the horizon for answers that lay just beyond reach. Would his sister sense the change he believed he had made within himself? Each step resonated with the essence of deliberate choice, a representation of the bravery flickering beneath the surface. Upon entering the cafe, his sister sat at a corner table, her fingers tapping rhythmically on her phone. The familiar features of her face flickered with recognition as she glanced up, her expression a mix of trepidation and warmth. In that moment, Ethan recognized the unspoken link of family and affectionate weight overshadowed by years of separation. He could almost feel the foundations shifting within him, urging him to break the tension before it sealed off any chance for meaningful dialogue. "Sarah," he started, his voice steadier than he expected. She looked at him, her expression a blend of cautious optimism and guarded vulnerability. "I'm glad you're here." "Me too," she said, her smile tinged with nerves. "I wasn't sure you'd come." Silence settled between them, rich with the threads of their shared past, laden yet unformed. Ethan took a breath, the air thick with opportunity. He remembered his intention, honesty. Pushing down the anxiety that threatened to surface, he leaned in. "I owe you both an apology and an explanation. For years, I've been caught up in my own world, forgetting the importance of family." He paused, gauging her reaction. "But I realize now I want to change that." "What do you mean?" Sarah questioned, her interest piqued. an encouraging spark in her eyes. Ethan felt the weight of his narrative building. He began recounting the moments that shaped him, not as an overt measure of remorse, but as a testament to growth. He shared the loneliness, the relentless pursuit of success hollowed out by isolation, and yet how he had found a flicker of purpose in reconnecting with them. Each word felt like an offering, an invitation to bridge the chasm. Excitement pricked at him, contagious in its essence. But he still dwelled within the fear of vulnerability. What if his openness only pushed them away? Would he then have to face the painful acknowledgement of inevitably repeating his mistakes? Just as he was about to delve deeper into his past, a flash of recognition crossed his sister's face, her eyes glistening as she shifted in her seat. She would need more than a surface-level story. She deserved to see his raw honesty, his unfiltered hope amid the chaos of their history. Did he have the strength to allow that part of himself to emerge? Before he could answer his own question, Sarah spoke. Ethan, there's something I've been meaning to tell you. Her words hung in the air, pregnant with potential and uncertainty. An invisible thread wove tighter between them, ready to either unite them or shatter once again. Would this unfold as a pivotal moment of connection or merely lead to more unresolved tension? The stakes felt impossibly high, the road ahead uncertain, beckoning him further into emotional territories he had long avoided. Ethan Reynolds sat across from his sister, Sarah, at the cafe, feeling the gravity of the moment pressing down on him like a weight he had long neglected. The years of silence crackled in the air, charging their conversation with an undercurrent of hope and anxiety. Their past loomed larger than the coffee cups separating them, as though their shared history dared him to traverse the chasm of misunderstanding and neglect he had created. Ethan, Sarah's voice broke through his swirling thoughts. There's something I've been thinking about for a long time. Her eyes met his with a blend of apprehension and determination, mirroring the tumult within him. Me too, he replied, tightening his grip on his mug, willing the warmth from the ceramic to infuse courage into his core. I want to apologize and explain myself. I've been absent, prioritizing my work and building my success over our family. He took a steadying breath, recalling the newfound resolve that had sparked just days ago in the coffee shop with Maddie. But that's changing. Are you sure? Sarah pressed, her expression a mixture of skepticism and vulnerability. You've said that before. Admittedly, I haven't acted on it. I thought success would fill the void, but all it did was distance me from those who really matter. Ethan released a sigh, the admission feeling both freeing and terrifying. I don't want to make excuses. I've been hiding behind my role as CEO, but I've realized that anyone can have a title. It takes courage to be genuine and to embrace vulnerability. He hesitated, allowing his gaze to drift around the cafe, observing families laughing, friends connecting moments he had long taken for granted or missed entirely. I want to be present, not just as your brother, but as someone you can talk to and rely on. I know I need to earn your trust back. The silence that followed was palpable, heavy with unspoken thoughts. Ethan's heart thudded as he studied Sarah's face, reading the flickers of emotions that crossed her features, a mix of pain, longing, and perhaps the tiniest glimmer of hope. I'm happy to hear that, Ethan, she finally said softly, her words tempered with careful optimism. But are you really committed to this? To being part of our lives again? Yes, he declared, a newfound firmness resonating from somewhere deep within him. I'm committed to not only rebuilding my relationship with you and our family, but also reshaping who I am. The resolve in his voice seemed to kindle a spark in Sarah's eyes. You know, I've missed our shared moments too. It's been hard seeing you so wrapped up in your life. Everyone in the family has felt your absence. Ethan's heart sank slightly at the acknowledgement, a painful reminder of the gulf he had allowed to widen. I want to hear about everything: your life, your challenges, the things I've missed. Sarah took a deep breath, her expression softening. It's been tough, Ethan. Seeing you get further away hurt every time we gathered as a family. And yet, I didn't know how to tell you. I often felt angry and it took a toll. He nodded, feeling the weight of her words. I understand that anger. I'm sorry for the distance I created, the confusion my choices brought. I regret not being there when you needed me. As the conversation flowed, Ethan felt a sense of transformation wash over him. Each confession, each shared emotion, felt like threads weaving a tapestry of connection, tangible and alive. He listened as Sarah spoke of her life, the struggles she faced, her dreams, and all the moments he had missed. For the first time in years, he tuned into the pulse of familial love, rather than the isolating hum of the corporate world as they spoke. Ethan chose to share his own journey, the tumultuous experiences that led him to this moment. Being a father is just as important as being a CEO, he told her, a smile breaking through the somber occasion. I want my children to know me as a man who was brave enough to admit his mistakes. Sarah listened intently, her gaze reflecting a newfound understanding. It's refreshing to hear this new approach. From you. It's all we've ever wanted, your presence, your connection. Ethan felt the burdens of years past lift as the mood shifted, the tone transforming from that of strained apologies to shared laughter and heartfelt exchanges. The conversation turned lighter, filled with anecdotes from their childhood, favorite memories, and dreams for the future unpolished, yet deliciously real as they parted ways that afternoon. An exhilarating sensation enveloped Ethan, the transformative power of vulnerability, the warmth of rekindling connection, and the understanding that it wasn't just an opportunity to reconnect with his sister. It was a reclamation of who he wanted to be as a man and a father. Walking back, he felt a renewed sense of mission. His journey toward reconnecting with his children now had momentum. Not only had he spoken of his aspiration to be a better brother, but he had also laid the groundwork for healing with them, embracing the daunting yet vital aspects of being emotionally present. And now, filled with determination and clarity, he envisioned the next step, picking up the phone that had once connected him to corporate strategy but was now his lifeline to rekindling familial bonds. The path ahead was warmed by the sun of accountability, illuminating every step toward the meaningful future he had long neglected. Ethan had stepped into the crucible of transformation, emerging not just as the successful CEO but as a man committing himself to growth and connection at the forefront of his life. And, dear audience, this is the moment for you. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm you need to support the incredible journey of transformation. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. Let us spread the values of courage, vulnerability, and real connection.